he had discovered that it was an emotional process that the person is completely unaware of. In other words, we call it unconscious, which means it's dissociated from your consciousness. And since people aren't aware of it, they don't believe it. Like I didn't believe. I'm not this, I'm not that. But it's a side of us that we're completely unaware of. Like Carl Jung said, there is another person within us whom we do not know. Okay, there's another person inside of us that we don't know about because we're too busy feeding the false narrative, this face that we show the world, that Freud called a superego and Jung called a persona. We think we are that person at some point. And so it's very difficult for people to buy into it. And a lot of people reject the work like I did. And so I can't judge anybody for rejecting this work that I'm talking about now because I did. But it works every single time.
1, 0.
Hi, and welcome to Stellar Life Podcast. This is your host, Orion, and today I have with me the amazing Steve Ozanich. This guy is phenomenal. He helped me with my chronic pain. And in this episode, we talked about how to heal chronic pain, the power of your mind, how most pains are curable, almost all of them, just by healing some trauma and shadow work, and more. Steve is amazing, is a beautiful, kind, loving, spiritual guy, and he helped thousands, if not millions of people heal themselves. Steve Ozanich is a renowned expert on mind-body health, a teacher of presence, and author of The Great Pain Deception. Steve has helped to teach tens of thousands of people how to heal themselves from pain and disease through his lectures, book articles, and interviews. He's also the author of 2 children's books and has 3 degrees from Youngstown State University. This was an amazing interview. I feel so happy, elated, and alive after that. And this is kind of like the side effect of talking to Steve. Incredible. I'm sure you're going to love it too. And if you have a chronic pain or any pain, know that there is a solution and you can heal it no matter what other people tell you. And now, without further ado, on to the show. Hi, Steve, and welcome to Stellar Life Podcast. I am so excited that you're here. So excited.
Thanks for the opportunity to spread this message.
Yes. Before we dive in, can you share a little bit about your life story and how you got into your teachings?
Sure. How to compress this down into a short story.
It can be long.
I started having back pain when I was about 14 years old. And of course, we tried everything at the time. And like anything, everything helps a little bit for a short time.
Yeah.
But it never really went away. And then a series of tragedies happened throughout the 1980s and 1990s in my life. And so by the end of the 1990s, my back pain, which had never gone away, was so bad that my left leg was partially paralyzed.
Wow.
I had foot drop, no more reflexes in that leg, had to drag it for 9 months. And of course, the surgeon said I needed surgery. And I was a couple weeks away from the final surgical consult when I was introduced to the work of Dr. John Sarno. And I got his book. It was called Healing Back Pain. I got his book, and as I was reading it, I thought he was crazy. And so I threw the book. I rejected it. The thing that was going to save my life, I rejected. How's that?
Wow.
And so I got worse. I couldn't get out of bed anymore. I had lost around 50 pounds. I could no longer eat from the pain. I was crawling around. So out of desperation, I went back to that book and I started to see the genius in it. And so it took me a while because I didn't have the knowledge that I have today, of course. It took me a while to heal, but I healed completely after 30 years.
Wow.
And so I ended up writing 3 books on that topic of Dr. Sarno's work, which we can talk about if you like. And I've witnessed tens of thousands of people heal from not just back pain, but everything. Skin problems, sleep problems, cancer, MS. I helped a lady get her hearing back. She went completely deaf. Because our health problems are all from one source. They are spiritual problems. In the end, they're
Wow.
spiritual problems. And so that's the shortest I can tell that story.
Yes. So, what is Dr. Sarno's work? What is he all about?
Sure. The reason that I rejected it was because he had discovered that it was an emotional process that the person is completely unaware of. In other words, we call it unconscious, which means it's dissociated from your consciousness. And since people aren't aware of it, they don't believe it, like I didn't
Mhm.
believe it. You know, I'm not this, I'm not that, but it's a side of us that we're completely unaware of. Like Carl Jung said, there is another person within us whom we do not know.
Ooh.
Okay, there's another person inside of us that we don't know about because we're too busy feeding the false narrative, this face that we show the world, that Freud called a superego and Jung called a persona. We think we are that person at some point. And so
Mhm.
it's very difficult for people to buy into it. And a lot of people reject the work like I did. And so I can't judge anybody for rejecting this work that I'm talking about now because I did. But it works every single time. Well, he was the head of the outpatient center at the Howard Rusk Institute in New York University. And he was very frustrated with his back patient results. Surgery wasn't really working, therapy wasn't really working, all the other modalities that he was trying weren't working, and he was a great man and he wanted to help.
Mhm.
So he went and he looked at their files, the back pain patients, and he noticed that they had a lot of other health problems too, like I did as well. Skin problems, sleep problems, a lot of allergies, things like that. So he began to talk to them, and he noticed patterns in these people that they were what he called a goodist, someone who was leaned towards perfectionism in their lives,
Mm.
somebody who was hyper responsible, who
That
pushed
sounds so
themselves hard.
familiar. Sounds like
Yeah,
somebody I know intimately.
yeah, me and you. Yeah, it's this driven person to achieve, to push, to win, to excel. And what they discovered was is that it was making us very angry to be like that.
Mhm.
Very, very angry. And it was causing virtually every health problem that we have. And back pain was the number one problem in the world. Back pain's the number one problem in the world right now. And so
Yeah.
he started to talk.
And according to Louise Hay, back pain is also support. So when we give so much and when we are pleasers, we don't feel supported. And it's interesting because we don't cognitively understand that we are resentful and that what is causing the pain.
Yeah, it is always symbolic, like you said. The unconscious side is causing this problem, the side the person's unaware of. And what it does is it attacks the herniations in the body and the arthritis in the body and the stenosis in the body and the partial ligament tears and the meniscus and rotator cuff. And it makes the person think there's something wrong with that body part when there is not. Those things are proven not to cause pain, clinically
So
proven.
you say that a bulging disc or a herniation doesn't necessarily cause pain or ever never cause.
We know clinically through 40 years of astronomical success that those things do not cause pain. We know that. Okay. And the doctors are
Wow.
finally admitting it. They're finally admitting it. Some of the surgeons are.
Nobody, I've never heard anyone admit that. So I was like, because yeah, I went to the chiropractor and they're like, you have like three spots of compression on in your spine, and so my mind got a logical explanation to why I was feeling terrible sciatica before I had a conversation with you, and we'll get into that later. But this is common. This is so common. Like surgeons wants to cut you open. This is how they make their money. And even if they come with good intention, this is only the thing. This is the only thing they know. Nobody. Most of the people in the world don't understand what you are sharing with me right now.
Yeah, it's a revolution in understanding. There's a guy named David Hanscom. He was a spine surgeon from, I think he's from Seattle. And he said he was a member of a group, a spinal surgical group there that was the most aggressive unit in America. He said they used to operate at a rate 9 times the natural average, the national average for back pain. But he himself had severe debilitating back pain, and he was suicidal, he said at one point, from the pain. And he found Dr. Sarno's work, and he healed. And so he's one of the ones out there, and there are others who he's saying, these things do not cause pain. We know that. We know that.
So when is there a time for surgery?
Boy, I've never been asked that before. Almost never, I would say. I mean, we have great stories. Anybody can go look at Ben-Zion Scheinfeld, the rabbi that's on YouTube, talking about how he had fragmented a disc in his back. The
Wow.
soft disc is the intervertebral part. It broke off, and he was told he needed immediate surgery by 4 doctors. And he went to see Dr. Sarno with 1 lecture, and it disappeared. So we know, I imagine if you're in a car wreck, you might need some bracing or something like that. I really don't know, but I can tell you that these things do not cause back pain. I've seen it tens of thousands of times, and I've helped many, many people. And I'm not even in the medical industry. I'm just a teacher of this work and a teacher of presence, which is the only way out of it. And so, but it's more than back pain, though. They need to know that. I'm seeing people heal from everything. Eating disorders, skin disorders, sleeping disorders, cancer, you name it. It's all from one cause.
So you said that you healed someone from blindness.
Definitely.
What are some of the most extreme, let's go to the extreme cases that were healed by your work and Dr. Serrano's work?
Sure. Wow, there's so many of them. Which ones do I pick out?
The most extreme ones. The ones that people are going to go like, ooh, ah.
Well, there's a guy named Joe that comes to mind. He's actually on my wall of victory. I started a YouTube wall of victory for people who were told that they could never heal by their doctors, but they're all fine now. Okay, they're all fine. So you never listen to that you can't heal. You got to manage it and never listen to that. So when he signed on with me to do a consultation, he was so thin. His face was emaciated. I could see the skeletal bones in his face. And so I thought, this guy's suffering, from something. I was kind of eager to see what he was going to say. And he proceeded to tell me that when he ate foods, he would have a reaction, an extreme reaction to swelling, I guess, and he would have to sometimes get taken to the hospital. And he went to the doctor, who, of course, led him down the wrong path. The doctors told him he had a histamine intolerance. Now, all food has histamine in it, but some has high histamine, some has low histamine. Chicken and rice happen to have low histamine in them. And so his mind had him convinced through his doctor that he could only eat chicken and rice. And so for 5 years, he had been eating chicken and rice. And so, of course, I told him immediately, there's no such thing as histamine intolerance. That's something they label this spiritual problem. Okay. Well, he said, that's not why I'm consulting with you. He said, there's something else I came here for. He said, during this time, I went through a car wash and they poured this cherry smell on top of the car. And it triggered a chemical response in his nose, he said. And he said it was like they took a bucket of molten lava and poured it over my head. Every nerve in his body was on fire. Every nerve. Now, Dr. Sarno taught me about burning mouth syndrome. I've seen burning leg syndrome, burning arm syndrome, but I've never seen burning body syndrome. This was the first time. Well, I told him, of course, there's no such thing as a chemical sensitivity. That's something your mind you've bought into. Well, he healed. He healed. And he did a video for me. Anybody can go look at it. He explains it. But he got out an egg, he said. He said, I got this egg out and I ate it because I told him he could eat anything he wanted. Don't buy into the prison. You're become a prisoner of your mind. And he ate it. And he said, that was like the greatest egg of all eggs in the history of eggs. It was so good. And dilly bars. He wanted dilly bars. So he's eating pretty much anything he wants now. He's actually helping people too now. He was telling me about a guy in Australia who thought he was being burned by the sun. For 5 years, he'd lived in a hotel, hadn't gone out. And he explained to him, it's your mind, do not buy into it. The guy's out, I guess, and running around and doing fine now. And so people are spreading this work like crazy, like we're doing today, which is the light. It's the light of consciousness spreading today.
So that's amazing. And it makes sense to me when it comes to adults. But what about babies when they get sick? How can you teach a baby that it's their mind, and does it always caused from the mind, or do actual diseases actually exist?
Yeah, if you side with Bruce Lipton and others at that level of consciousness, you would say that there is no such thing as a disease. Although there are two of them we don't understand, Huntington's and Tay-Sachs, that seem to mutate from family to family. I'm still sure that's a consciousness spiritual problem, but with babies, that's a good example.
Maybe epigenetic.
Yeah, epigenetics is the phrase that he uses. The signals we send to the body to go cancerous, to go MS, to have pain. They're signals. We're doing it to ourselves. How's that? Louise Hay was the
Yeah.
first brave one to say that all disease is self-inflicted, which is true.
Right.
But then people get defensive. Well, you're blaming the victim. Well, there's no victim, really. People don't know they're doing it to themselves. But babies is a good, probably example of a spiritual problem. Something about the incarnation and the consciousness that comes into that being. Well, I don't understand it, of course. It's beyond my pay grade. But there's something going on there, something we don't understand.
Wow. That's the best answer I've ever gotten. Not that I asked that question a lot, but I asked it in my mind a lot.
Yeah, I see Eckhart
Wow.
Tolle asked that question quite a bit too. Why do babies get sick? They're so beautiful, they're so angelic and innocent, but sometimes that's the role that they play when they come here. I'll take on the role. Our higher selves are guiding us every day.
Right.
We're a projection of our higher self, all right? Like the prophets have said, you're in this world, but you're not of this world, right?
Right.
And
Yes.
so sometimes they're telling us that they'll say, I'll take on that role to maybe pull these people together in greater love. I'll die quickly. That's probably what's going on. I imagine we'll all find out at some point, but there's a brilliant plan being played out that we cannot understand. It's absolutely beautiful. We can't understand it because we're too locked up in our own egos at this point.
So, what can people do who are listening and they have either a chronic disease or a chronic pain? What can they do today or understand today that can help them start their healing journey?
First thing is know that anyone can heal. Okay, I never say anybody will heal, if you notice. Anybody can heal. Because as David Hawkins brilliantly said, your ego doesn't give a damn about your life. There are many people who will die before they admit that they're wrong. There are many people who die before they admit their relationship is over. There are many people who will die before they admit they hate their job or whatever. The ego doesn't care about you, and so it will kill people at some point. So you have to know that you can heal at some point. And then you start, we have to be responsible with our lives. This is the most precious thing we own, right? Our life. And so we always tell people, get an examination. If you have back pain, make sure there's not a pool of blood sitting there or something, right? Some type of blood clot. Something dangerous. Make sure you're not in danger. Protect yourself first, right? But once you do, then you have to pretty much ignore what the imaging and the testing shows. And so understand you can heal, and then get into this work. It's called, by the way, I don't think we mentioned it. It's called TMS, Dr. Sarno's discovery.
We did not. Maybe it's because I had a long 2.5 hour conversation with you that for me it's still like so fresh in my brain. But yeah, let's get. Tell me more.
Okay, all right, good. Dr. Sarno, people listening probably going, what was it? What was it?
What? Tia, what?
So he discovered, now this is just a quick explanation. It was developed over decades, okay? But he discovered that the back pain, for instance, or knee pain or foot pain, it doesn't matter where it is. It's from tension. So he called his discovery TMS, tension myoneural syndrome. And when he began to explain to his patients back in the late 70s, I think, ignore the MRI, ignore the X-ray, don't pay attention to the CAT scan. There's nothing wrong. Those changes that are in your body, you're seeing on those images, they're normal. Everybody has them starting about as a teenager. Everyone starts to decay. And so he said, think of it as anger that you're never going to feel. It's anger you're never going to feel. Remember, you're not going to feel it. That's why you have the symptom because you do not feel the anger. If you felt the anger, you wouldn't have the symptom. You see,
Hmm.
the disease or pain is a substitution for the emotion that you cannot feel. And once he began to explain this to his patients, he said he was mystified. They began to heal. Some of them right in front of them while he was talking to them. And I've seen that on Zoom. I've seen people heal from 10 years of chronic suffering while I was talking to them on Zoom. Now, that's not common. It's pretty bizarre. Every time it happens, it's freaky to see it happen, that it could happen that quick.
How do you see it happen on Zoom? What do you see in the people you talk to on Zoom where they have this spontaneous healing?
Yeah, a typical example will be they start to cry really hard and they can't speak for a few minutes. And I'll say, "Are you okay?" And they'll say, "It's gone. It's gone." And I'll have them stand up and move around and bend and things like that. "Are you sure? Are you sure it's gone?" Now that's unusual. People should not expect that, but it could happen. Usually over the next few days or weeks or even months, it will eventually begin to fade with what Dr. Sarno called the accurate knowledge. You have to understand exactly what's going on. In other words, he would say, surgery is not the wrong modality, it's the wrong diagnosis. Okay? In other words, the herniation is not causing the pain. That's what the doctor diagnosed. It's not true. Okay, the diagnosis is TMS, right? And so understand you can heal. Never listen to the doctor who tells you you cannot heal. Okay? There's a very few things in this world that we can't turn around. And the Spontaneous Remissions Project is proof of that. This project they started, all these people were supposed to die. I think there was, last time I looked at it, there was like 9,000 people in it. They were supposed to die, and they're fine now. They were told they would die. And so they're trying to study what's happening with these people. Well, they find about nine different factors, but the one of the most common factors in these people that lived is they didn't believe their doctor.
I did that with my son. I did a lot of other work, like I had fertility issues, and uh, and the doctor gave me 5% chance to conceive, which is not a lot. And in my mind, I said, doctor, it's 95% chance. And I had certainty beyond logic, and I believed in God, and I believed in my body, even though all the evidence shows no, you're probably not destined to have kids, Orion. Um, and yeah, I refused. And I have to tell you, sometimes it takes a lot of energy and this is also why I kept my pregnancy secret, which was also hard. It was a lonely journey. Only a handful of people knew that I was pregnant, and most of them weren't even close to me physically. So I didn't believe the doctors, but it also, I spent so much energy kind of like protecting myself from others people's field and belief systems, um and like when the doctor come and she said you have to do ABC and it doesn't align to me, and I'm like, no, I'm not taking this injection you want to give me right now, because I have different evidence and I know that I don't need it. But it's like a constant fight against other people who have really good intention, but they believe the narrative, they believe the collective agreement, and then actually have to be one. I have to be like a 1%er or 5%er in order to manifest my dreams and what's right for my body.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. It's a spiritual process. It reminds me. I just watched a documentary. There was a female physician on there, and she was trying to get pregnant, and she couldn't. And so she started to think, maybe I'm unconsciously blocking it outside
Mm.
of my awareness. So they did some testing. I don't know what it was, but they did some testing, and they saw that she wasn't producing this chemical or something, and it was blocking the pregnancy. And so she started doing some shadow work, which was Jungian work. Carl Jung called it a shadow, this unknown
Mhm.
dark side of ourselves. And he discovered she did not want to get pregnant. And soon after she did get pregnant.
Do you do shadow work for people?
I only understand what I read. I studied it for years, but I'm not an analyst. I'm not a. I have helped Jungian analysts to heal, by the way, but I'm not a therapist myself. I consider myself a teacher. And I do talk about the side of them that they don't understand and things like that. Just as a teacher, I teach TMS and I teach presence to people.
Right.
And it seems to work virtually every time. I probably showed you this guy who had uh, stage 4 cancer, who was supposed to die shortly, and he's fine now. I didn't work with him, by the way. I'm not meaning to say it, but they sent me the book.
Mm-hmm.
He only had a short time to live. He was 36, and
Wow.
he said he got rid of the doctors, he got rid of the chemo, he got rid of the radiation, he got rid of the death sentence and all that, and he started doing the spiritual work, and he healed. He's fine now. He's fine now. So anybody can heal, but it takes a change.
It
We
takes a
have to
lot of
shift in your
courage.
consciousness. Yeah, courage is what David Hawkins said was that demarcation line. Without the courage, nothing's going to happen. So that's a good point. Yes, courage.
And it's the courage to, like you said, break your persona and break your identity and believe in the impossible. That is what will make you and break you. And when I studied Kabbalah, they said if you don't have the desire, even for to do anything, in this case the desire to heal, you can even pray to have the desire to heal. Like I feel like we are surrounded by angels and divine beings and God energy that and and God wants the best for us. And sometime a part of our soul journey is to surrender to the divine power and say like, hey, I can't do it anymore, please take it from here. And in order to surrender, you have to have a lot of courage. You just have to take every ounce of courage in your body and say, okay, I'm willing to. It's like shedding, uh, like a snake shedding its skin. I'm willing to shed in order to grow a new, expensive version of myself. And
Good point.
it's a process.
I've often said that, the greatest strength we have is to let go. It takes a
Mhm.
lot of strength to let go of something. It reminds us of Anita Morjani's journey, the beautiful lady.
I bought her book. I read her book. I have it here actually on the other bookshelf. Dying to Be Me. It was a great book. I loved
Yeah,
it.
that was a good book. She died from cancer in 2006. She left her body, her consciousness, her soul left her body for a few hours, came back in. She saw why she got sick, you know, because she was not aligned. She says she got sick because she was not aligned with her soul's mission and purpose here on earth. You're fighting your soul's energy at some point, and the ego will take you down. Like I said, your ego will take you down. And so she told me that cancer didn't kill me. She said it saved me. And it's right. Sometimes we get these things. Well, the Buddha said, bless every problem that comes your way. And so when you start to view life like Rumi said to view life, live your life as though it's rigged in your favor, he said, that you start seeing these things are not happening to you, they're happening for you. If you think it's happening to me, you got a pretty bad life coming ahead of you. Everything's going to be miserable because perspective is reality right at this point. And so when you start saying, when something comes up like a disease or a pain, right, a pain, you should be saying, okay, what is this radical truth? It's a radical truth trying to be made known. What is it I'm supposed to learn and change and shift here? That's what people should be doing, not let's cut it out of you. Let's poison it. That's what the medical industry does. Let's get rid of it.
Yeah, there is a rabbi named Rabbi Shalom Arush, and he's got a series of books about gratitude. And I recently read a little notebook about gratitude from him, and he says to say thank you also for the bad things. Like thank you for the pain, thank you for the suffering, thank you for not having this And he said that people that say thank you not just for the good, but also for the bad in their lives, create real miracles. Because when you say thank you for the bad, it's almost like you completely surrender for the divine, and for the bigger plan, and you say, if I'm meant to have this, thank you. If I'm not meant to have this, thank you. And when people get to that level of complete surrender, then the breakthrough happen. And it's almost like their soul came to this world to have this breakthrough, to to create this awakening.
Yeah, it's a radical truth trying to be made known. And so if we ignore it, it could kill us. If we ignore
Right.
what the message is coming. But this is a duality we live in, so there's always another side to everything. There's always a left to a right and an up to a down, an inside to an outside, and a dark to a light, and a male to a female. There's always this.
Right. And I love the cover of your book here. And you have the duality here. But tell me, please, what is this snake head? I couldn't wrap my head around why there is a snake skull here.
It's an ancient symbol called a Ouroboros.
Oh, the snake that eats itself?
Yeah, sometimes it's a dragon in the ancient
Ah.
symbols. Like the medical industry, they cause the problem and then they try to solve the problem, and they cause the problem, and you see it's a never-ending cycle of snake.
And what are those like hands pushing through? Because I'm showing that your book cover and everybody can see it in the show notes or on YouTube. What are those hands punching through the light port?
I nicknamed it's a face and two hands if people can't make it out. It's a guy pushing faster than the light allows.
Oh.
He's pushing ahead of the. I called him anxiety dude. People were always trying to stay prepared and anticipate and try to prevent disaster and locked in fight flight syndrome, trying to be good, trying to be perfect. They're the ones who are miserable instead of allowing the light to unfold naturally in front of them.
Mm.
That's the first time anybody's asked that. That's good. In case anybody's wondered, a lot of people say, "I didn't even notice that there on the book."
Yeah, it's very interesting. I love the idea of yin yang. In my teachings and my coaching, I talk a lot about feminine, masculine polarities, light and dark, shadow work, and personas. So I love symbolisms because our brain really works with symbolisms. It doesn't work with just plain ideas. Our brain will be more influenced by the symbolism of a key or yin yang or shackles, breaking through shackles. It's like metaphors are so strong for the brain. So I do hypnotherapy and I studied NLP too. So when I coach people, I use those symbols. That's why I'm so keen about symbols. That's why I love it so
It's
much.
all over my house. Yes, it's important because it's the power point in our lives is the center between the yin and the yang, between the left and the right. We know from physics that that's true, like a pendulum. The point as it swings up is not, and it swings this way is not. It's at the center here, at that 0 point, is the most force. The Buddha said the middle way is the way. That's right. It's always the way. Richard Rohr, the Franciscan monk, said that it's not an accident that Jesus's cross was the middle cross between the left, the good thief, and the bad thief, because that middle point is God. That middle point. It doesn't take sides. God is not
Mm.
this or that. God is that which by which everything else comes into being. Everything that is comes from that source. And so, yes, the middle way is very important. But these people that Dr. Sarno discovered with health problems, they were too far to the good side, to the light side, pushing so hard to be perfect. It was enraging them. They were totally out of balance at this point.
Hmm.
So they needed to come back, let the dark side out a little bit to play, because they're too busy trying to please everybody in their lives, and which
So
killed Anita Morjani, it killed her.
yeah. And yes, I do a lot. I did, or I thought I did a lot of shadow work and embracing my lightness and dark. And here I am with this like horrible sciatica that wakes me up in the middle of the night. And I go to physical therapists and chiropractors, and it doesn't go away, and it hurts a lot. And then I have a conversation with you, and I reframe my lousy mindset, and which is funny because I teach mindset, haha. Um, and it's almost gone, but I feel like, and I told you that before the interview, that every time I am in a lower state, I start feeling it a little bit. Like last night I felt it a little bit. um like every time I'm worried or stressed out, it's like the back is reacting to me.
Yes. Well, Dr. Sarno hypothesized that your brain is creating the pain to distract you from what's going on in your life.
Hmm.
When we feel overwhelmed, when we feel lost, when we feel lonely, when we feel anger, of course, we want to put our attention and focus on our body instead of the emotion. Because for some reason, human beings are wired in such a way that they prefer physical pain over emotional pain. And I think
Hmm.
I understand it, because with physical pain, I think there's some sense of control. I can at least cut it or stab it or numb it or something. With emotional control, I think we feel we can't control it, emotional problems. And so, but once again, they're never going to feel these emotions. And
Mm.
it's safer in society to say I have a physical problem. Like you can call into work on Sunday night and say, I'm not coming into work tomorrow. I have back pain. My back hurts. Everybody understands that.
Hmm.
Everybody's had pain. And okay, but you can't call in and say, I'm not coming to work tomorrow. I'm frightened.
Yes, and in our society, we try to numb the pain. Anything from Prozac to different type of addictions to yeah, I guess addictions to anything, or like taking anything that will take away this emotional pain because I cannot deal with myself. It's too
Yeah,
much.
addictions are the same mechanism as pain, identically. Same
Tell me
regions of the
more.
brain, same causes and effects. Well, an addiction like alcoholism, for example,
Yeah.
it's trying to distract you from your life. It's an escape. It's escape. You can think of your pain as an escape. That's what Dr. Sarno's trying to say. You're looking at the pain now instead of your life or what's going on in your life. And so addictions are an escape. Everybody knows
Hmm.
that. Heroin's an escape. Cocaine's an escape.
Even spirituality can be an escape.
If you treat it, that's right. You can. That's why Yogananda always said, don't don't seek God for the thrill of it.
Uh huh.
Like I just want to know God for a little while, then I want to go away. No, you want to know permanently, he said. So yeah, you're right. We can use anything. People will use spirituality as an escape instead of something to embrace, which is the present moment.
So if somebody is experiencing a lot of pain, going through transition, change in their life, loss, whatever it is that is causing the pain right now in their lives, what can they do?
Like I said a few minutes ago, get an exam. Make sure you don't have anything dangerous, I guess, sitting there. Even then, it can be healed. Okay.
Right.
But this is to protect everybody involved here, right? So get an exam, and then I would say get into this work and really start to examine your life. It's like Anita Morjani said that she's often asked, "What would you do differently now?" Knowing, she died from a cancer and she came back and she's healthy as can be now because she knows it's not a disease. She told me that on the phone. It's not a disease. She's asked, "What would you do differently?" She said, well, I would do the exact opposite of everything I did the first time. Exact opposite. I ran to the internet and I found all the naturopathic and I did this and I changed my diet and this. She said, I wouldn't do any of that now. If I got sick again, I would look at my life first and say, where am I doing things I don't want to do?
Mm,
That's the first thing. Start peeling away this, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. Start to free yourself up.
that's powerful. Where am I doing the things I don't want to do?
Yeah, that's what I would
Wow.
do. If I got pain again, I would start looking, all right, where have I been doing things without myself knowing it that I haven't really been wanting to do, that I have actually despised? That's the first thing that I would do.
And Steve, when you had the pain, what were those things that you didn't want to do that you did?
Well, remember, this is the shadow side of us.
Hmm.
All right? It's the undeveloped side. It's the self-centered, needy side that everybody has. Like Jung said, everybody has a shadow. So
I'm
everybody's
never
got this.
needy.
Yeah. That's the other side talking.
I'm
Yeah,
joking.
so, well, if anybody reads that book that you held up there, they'll see that my wife was made a paraplegic by a doctor in 1985. We had our first child, and the anesthesiologist paralyzed her permanently from the waist down with the spinal anesthetic. So, obviously, the darker side of me was furious. Probably
Hmm.
wanted to kill the doctors. It probably wanted to leave her, right? But like Dr. Sarno said, these people are goodists. I wanted to be the good husband. I wanted to be the good father. I wanted to be the good employee, the good citizen, right? Well, the whole time, I don't want to be. The other side of me is just furious. I'm out of balance. I'm too far this way and not enough this way, in balance to the center, starting to see the whole picture of my life. I was only
Oh,
seeing what I wasn't getting, and I was full of rage. And so my leg and foot ended up paralyzed. And so
wow.
a lot of things. Aging is the biggest thing that I see. It makes us angrier than anything. It's getting older. The tick tock of time. 20 years old, 30 years old, 40 years old, 50. It's enraging. It's enraging.
Well, when people ask me how old I am, I keep telling them that I'm 27. I decided that I'm 27, and I totally believe that the way you see yourself affects your body. Because when I've been through some trauma lately, after October 7th and the whole thing, the whole ordeal, I got so stressed out I fainted. Um, I started feeling like I'm getting old. For the first time in my life, I kind of like looked at myself and I'm like, oh, I'm getting old. I'm seeing this new line here and microscopic. Yeah, nobody else can see it, but I'm like, oh, like getting so almost into obsession. And I'm curious to get your thought on what am I trying to escape by obsessing about that. It's getting better though. I'm not obsessed anymore. I think. I hope.
Yeah, well, all obsession is an escape. That's why we obsess on things. OCD like personality, Dr. Sarno uncovered, obsessive compulsive people that do things repetitively.
Hmm.
There's a whole wide range, though. I've worked with people who cannot function in society because they're so crippled with OCD they can't even blink. They look like human statues.
Hmm.
But then there's people who are mildly, and then I was somewhere leaning towards the extreme obsessive range, in my life, with our thoughts, obsessive with our thoughts, obsessive with doing repetitive acts over and over again. Those are escapes. Those are escapes, right? And so your brain doesn't care what it obsesses about. It only wants you to obsess on something. And so it increases your pain so that you will obsess on your pain so that you can escape from your present life.
So how do I release that obsession?
Well, first you have to be shown that it is an obsession.
Yeah, okay. I've seen it. I've seen it. I self-analyze a lot to my detriment. It's not always good.
Well,
So,
Eckhart Tolle's on the right path, okay? This is probably why he's got one of the top selling books in the history of our world, The Power of Now, because he talks about this, the number one obsession in the world is thinking. If I can get them to stop thinking, they pretty much begin to heal right there at that point. Not always, but most of the time. And it takes a while because it becomes an addiction. Thinking is an addiction. And it's very hard to break addictions, right? And so, yeah, anybody can heal. But they first have to admit that there's nothing wrong with their body. That's the first thing. Or accept the fact. And about 80% of the world will say, nope, that's not true. I don't believe that. So they struggle. The other 20% basically all heal. Now, this is just a guess by looking at Dr. Sarno's work and what he saw and what I've seen in the last 24 years as well. About 20% of the people, they'll all heal. The other 80% are still locked into the egoic realm where they think they are this person they're pretending to be and they don't see anything wrong with themselves and they're not seeing the big picture. When you start to admit, I have a flawed side and I do make mistakes and I am needy and I do need other people in my life and I do need help, like you said, they start to do better. They're the ones who do the best. As a matter of fact, I mentioned it in my first book. The Simontons were some of the greatest cancer studies. The book was called Getting Well Again, I think. And they said the people who were locked into their own ego view of the life, that my view's right and everybody else is wrong, they're the ones who died or that did worse. The people who were willing and open to change and say, I'm maybe not seeing it right. Like I threw Dr. Sarno's book, so I rejected it, so I got worse, okay, because I would not admit that I was seeing it wrong. The people who did that did very well, they said, and they're some of the best in the world. I think he actually died while I was writing that book right there, that great pain deception book. He choked to death at home, choked to death while I was eating dinner. He was one of the greatest researchers. I was stunned because I was working on his work at that point. That was a great loss to us. But yes, ego is the problem here. I can say ego is the problem why you're sick and why you're in pain. And remember what Wayne Dyer called ego, if you remember what he called ego, edging God out.
Yeah, I remember that. I used to watch a lot of Wayne Dyer. I love him. Tim Louise Hay, such pioneers they were.
Yes, he was very engaging. He had a beautiful speaking voice, and he was an elegant speaker.
Yeah.
So yeah, he helped a lot of people. Louise helped a lot of people. I'm one of the messengers now. Norman Cousins, of course, Anatomy of an Illness. Dr. Sarno's helped millions of lives.
Hmm.
Anybody who wants to heal, it's there for the taking. It's there for the taking. Now, at some point, our soul will say, "This is all I wanted to do here. I'm leaving," and the
Right.
body will drop at some point. There's nothing we can do about that. I've already tested what I want to test, or I'm done. I'm out of here.
So, do you think that when we heal and we adopt this new identity that is more expensive, do you think we step into a new timeline where we are completely healed and well?
Well, yeah. I mean, as you get into the work deeper and deeper, you understand what the spiritual teachers are saying, and the yogis, and even the physicists, the quantum physicists, that there is no such thing as time.
Okay.
We are eternally here now.
Hmm.
We never, ever leave now, ever. What you think is tomorrow, we're not going through time. Time is going through us. In other words, we're stationary every day. What we think is tomorrow, we're actually pulling that thing to us by our thoughts and perspectives. It's coming through us. The people who have had near-death experiences are explaining this. This is where I got this. I'm not making this up on my own. I've seen them say this. They had it backwards. We're always here right now in this moment. And so presence is the only answer, which is God. I am is the name of God here in the Bible, right? I am, not I was or I will be. I am right now. It's God,
Yeah.
this moment.
What about our brain? How does our brain work as far as healing? Can we heal everything in our brain?
Well, I believe from what I've seen and things that I've read, people contact me about their amazing healing stories, even though I didn't work with them as well, that anything can be healed. Now, the brain is, if you listen to Eben Alexander, who also had a near-death experience, he wrote the book Proof of Heaven. He was an atheist. He was a neurosurgeon, died from meningitis from one of his patients, saw heaven, came back to write about it.
Mm-hmm.
He's talking about how the brain is a regulator. It regulates consciousness. It allows some in, but it prevents full consciousness as well. That's what a regulator does. It allows some in, prevents others from entering. And so it's about increasing your consciousness, because in full consciousness, there is no disease and there is no death. Okay, there's no birth in full consciousness. These are all mind things. But that's the higher understanding. And of course, he saw that firsthand. And he wrote a great book called Proof of Heaven. And so he's focused, I notice, on sacred acoustics a lot. He really focuses on that sound. The Om, the range of God, all the frequencies that forms our life. And what was his name? Shinichiro Terayama, the famous case of the Japanese guy who was going to die. He only had a short time to live. And he cried, of course. He said, well, if I'm going to die, I might as well enjoy the last few bits. Well, he started playing cello and it disappeared. Cancer disappeared. So he travels around the world talking about how sound is one of the healers as well. And my voice talking to people is part of the healing process as well.
Yeah, your voice, your energy, who you are. I don't know what happened after speaking with you for 2 hours, but I was a changed person. You really helped me.
Ah, well, that's nice to hear that.
Yeah.
It makes those things are the things.
You're so kind. You're so kind. Like, I left our conversation feeling so empowered and connected. And sometimes when we are so worried about things or obsessed about things or addicted to things, it's almost like the soul is leaving the body in a way. And then all of a sudden you feel grounded and you feel in your body and you see more opportunities, and life is better and the sun is shining uh, behind the clouds, and slowly everything's becoming brighter. I think you're such a light in the world, and I so love and appreciate you for that.
Oh, thank you very much. I feel the same about you, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yes, we're
Me?
here to help one another. We need to help one another. It's the greatest reward there is. Uh, Helping someone else lifts us up because we're all tied in this matrix together, all of us. And so when one is lifted up, everyone's lifted up. It lifts me up. Ramana Maharshi said, the greatest good you can do for planet Earth is to awaken. It's even more important
Mm,
than helping somebody. Once you awaken, everybody shifts up. The Buddha, Jesus, all these prophets, they've shifted the consciousness of the planet of
hmm.
what a good life is, and what a mission is, what God is, of course. So they're lights, they're Mahavatars at some point. And so yes, I'm just a messenger boy. I have a message that works literally every single time, but there's a big caveat. You have to want to heal. The
Yes.
ego does not want to. I know it sounds weird, doesn't it? But a lot of people don't want to heal. They're rather.
Yes and no. I mean, maybe in the past it would sound weird to me, but working with people and absorbing myself and other people, I can see how victim consciousness can be in the way, and how we gain a lot from being a victim. We gain a lot from playing small. We gain a lot from having a back pain and not having to deal with our shadow and our emotions. It's not conscious gains, it's subconscious gains. And for somebody who wants to heal, you got to do the work. There is no way around it. You can try all the ways around it, but eventually you will come and you'll have to meet yourself.
And it takes courage, like you said, first.
Yeah.
Courage.
And everybody has that courage inside of them, even if they think they don't.
Yes, they sometimes they,
Because everybody's a part of the light of God, the creation. And I bet God is courageous.
courage. This is David Hawkins' map of consciousness. Courage was the point that turned the tide of the energy fields when people began to heal. In his clinic, he was a medical
Mm.
doctor in his clinical practice, and then they had to be willing to heal. Nobody's going to heal if they're not willing to heal. And like Yogananda said, if you're not willing to be happy, nobody's going to make you happy. But if you've made up your mind to be happy, no one's going to make you unhappy. And so it's a decision people have to make. I often tell people that this is a decision you have to make. Do you want to heal or not? Or do you want to limp around the rest of your life, or do you want to stay sick? Sometimes they make that decision because the trauma or the childhood trauma is too painful to face.
To deal with.
Yeah, to deal with in real time, in the present moment, right?
Right.
And remember, trauma is past.
And let's have compassion for those people too. People who don't want to heal. Like everybody has their own journey, right?
Yeah,
But I bet the people that are listening here, there is a big part of them that does want to heal, and that's why they're listening. Or a part of them that wants to help a loved one heal.
thank you for saying that, by the way. Not very few people say that. Yes, compassion for those people. Dr. Hawkins was one of the greatest healers of all time, and he had the largest medical practice in America. He said, like 50 employees. That's a pretty big practice. But he said there was only like a small percentage of people that were getting all the results of his employees. Everyone was healing. The other people weren't getting very good results. So he went and he looked at what was going on there, and he said it was immediately obvious. Those people cared. Those people loved the people that they were trying to help. That was the big factor. It's love. It's going to come down to love at some point because that's all there is. That's the only reality in the universe. It's love. And so these people who suffer health problems, they lost love for themselves, because they'd learned that they weren't lovable from parents or something in life. When a child is abused, they always blame themselves every time, you know. And so, yeah, it's about love. And it sounds kind of cliche, to say it's about love, but it really is. It really is. Love is a high vibrational frequency, very high. And he mapped it out to 540 on the scale, whatever that means. It's just a number, but it's where all the healing occurred. It began at willingness, and then at love it healed.
And if you want to have more courage, connect to love. Because where there is love, there is no fear. They cannot exist the same time simultaneously. So if you want more courage, connect to more love. Because God is love. The universe is love. Healing energy is love. That's the core of all of it, I believe.
But I know a lot of people watching us now, because I've done so many interviews, they're saying, but how do I love?
What are you talking about?
How do I do that? They want to know. How do I love?
That too, yes.
Go watch Anita Morjani. She's got hundreds of videos on YouTube. She's talking about it all the time, how to love yourself, how to truly love yourself,
Yeah, and Louise Hayes say, when you do something good, run to the mirror and say, I love you. And when you do something bad, run to the mirror and say, I love you, no matter what. And if you can love yourself just a little bit more every day, in a year from now, you're going to have so much more love in your heart. So baby steps. You don't have to go and be like, now I'm full of love for myself after I experienced that trauma. No, baby steps. So when I was healing from an abusive relationship, it was the little things. Like, I did whatever I could, but it was like watching cat videos on YouTube, little things. It was going to martial art classes. It was crying in yoga classes. It was like dancing and screaming affirmations. And it was a process. It didn't happen in a day. It was like going to the mirror and doing mirror work. And the first time I did mirror work, I would cry. I couldn't tell myself I love you without crying for the first month or two. And then I was able to do it without crying. And then I was able to actually to start believing in it. So again, it goes back to compassion. Give yourself the compassion and the time to heal. You can do it, and there is no timeline. Everybody's very different. You do it in your own pace, and at every moment you give yourself a hug and compassion for what you did or didn't do, because like Dr. DiMartini always said, whatever you did or did not do, you are worthy of love.
That's well said. That's well said. But a lot of people say, but I never had love. I've never felt love in my life. And there's where the work begins, right there.
Yeah.
So find it. As a matter of fact, I've had a lot of people hire me that did ayahuasca, the ayahuasca plant. And they'll say, when they get into this state where your ego's ripped from your body and this oneness, you can see that the core of your being is love. The very core of every human being, made in the image of God, is love. So that's what we are. So it's about finding yourself, right? That's why Anita's book is called Dying to Be Me. That's why Carl Jung said repeatedly, seek the self, capital S, self, because it is love. That's all the healing is there. Okay? And of course, if you love God, it is to become everything that he made you.
Nice.
He made us unique. If you love him, become what he wants you to become. Okay? And so it is about self-work. Healing's all about self-work. It's not going to come from the outside. It's not going to come from a program. It's not going to come from a doctor, all these things on the outside. It's going to come from, although we may need assistance,
Yes, we need some help in the way.
Yes, I mean, if you have a bleeding ulcer, if you have an ulcer is a TMS event. It's tension and stress, okay? But if you don't get the bleeding stopped, you can die.
Yes.
So sometimes we need a stitch or a wound. Sometimes we need help, This is not an anti-doctor message. This is not an anti-medicine message. It's just that it's being abused, It's being misused most of the time and perpetuating the problem. But we still need great doctors. God knows we need great doctors.
So I had to go through a C-section, And without doctors being there, like I wouldn't be able to survive or my baby survive at that moment. And so yes, doctor has their place, and you have so much power over your destiny and over your body and over your emotional body and your energetic body and your connection to source. And you have that light in you, and if you hold on to that light and ignite it, you're just going to create a lot of healing and more light in your life, and you're going to be the light for other people.
That was so beautifully said. It reminded me of a song. You should have put music to what you just said there.
Dun,
It
dun, dun.
sounded like lyrics to a song.
Cool.
But yeah, we need good doctors, and I've helped a lot of doctors to heal from health problems, and some of them are so-called pain doctors, pain specialists. I've helped them to heal as well. But they're very loving and they're very open to it, and they don't let their degree get in the way of them. Their ego doesn't get in the way of them healing. They're okay. I was wrong here and there, and they do fine. But not all of them are like that, of course. There's good doctors, there's mediocre doctors, and there's really bad doctors, like any field.
Yes, and we love them all, and we need them all. Even sometimes we need the bad doctors to, because if you didn't have bad doctors, you wouldn't be the light that you are here today. Sharing this incredible message with the world, and also I'm super, super grateful on a personal level for my healing. So thank you, bad doctors, and thank you, egoistic doctors, and thank you, everything. Again, it goes back to like, thank you for everything. It's all from my highest and greatest good, because the universe is not happening to me; it's happening for me. Everything in your life is happening for your healing, for your expansion, for your light.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And our friend Joe Polish, our mutual friend Joe Polish.
Oh, I love Joe. He was on the show like a month ago. He's so good.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, I interviewed him.
Quotes his
Yeah.
one friend, I forget his friend's name, that everybody serves as a good example, even if it's to be a bad example. A bad example helps us sometimes more than good examples.
Yes, yes. I remember like every time in my life that when somebody tells me I can't, this is a good way to get me to do things. Like somebody told me you can never dance, and I became a Zumba instructor a long time ago. Um,
That's me.
yeah.
People tell me I can't do something, that's what I'm going to do.
That like turn on the fire in me. I'm like, just tell me I can't do it.
Yeah, this is my ego probably still engaging. But yeah, you know, um, people who are on top, they don't have a lot of motivation. You'll see great football coaches like Nick Saban and Jim Tressel from Ohio State talk about how being number one, it's hard to get your players motivated. But if you tell them, you're told you're not going to win, the analysts are saying you're not going to win this game, that you can't win, that's when you get them to win. You fire them up.
Yeah.
Maybe it's stroking the ego at some point, because people who want
Yeah.
to win a lot, there's a lot of ego driving that person. A person who's smart is just going to be happy. Happiness is a great revenge. Happiness is the best way to live your life.
Yeah, and ego is not good or bad. It can be a great motivator. It's only in your way when it's in your way. Like we need our ego, we need our desire, we need everything. It's how we dance with it.
Yeah, we have to have an ego, or you'd be walking down the street naked, at some point, I suppose. But there are people in India
Some people do.
that do that. In India, yeah, they walk around naked. They're fully awakened, and they have no shame or guilt in their lives. They're just walking around. They're awake. But
Yes.
we have to have some ego. Although I use the word ego differently than Anita uses it, so people get confused. She's saying to strengthen the ego. I'm saying to get rid of it. But we're using the word ego in different ways. People need to understand it, and she understands that we're using it differently. She's
Mhm.
talking about taking care of yourself and self-love and things like that. That's right. I'm using the word ego as your mind, as this egoic mind that's always incessantly clamorous and causing tension and fear and worry. I'm using it in different.
Yeah. In Kabbalah, they call it the opponent. It's like the little devil on your shoulder that is saying, "Don't do this. You can't do that." All the small voice that is trying to put you down or take away from your healing. It's a part of our soul's correction come into this world to engage and embrace and expand and fight with and fight against and then surrender and let go. and then repeat, rinse and repeat.
Rinse and repeat. That'd be a good song title too.
Maybe I should write some songs about it. I like singing.
It's an eternal journey is eternal. This particular life is finite, but the journey, we're never going to die. Like Anita said, it's just this never ending journey. Might as well make it a good life.
Yes, it's a gift to be here.
And you get rid of the ego. You get rid of the thinking, egoic mind that is the problem, and the life the frequency starts to pick up. People become happier. Like Edgar Casey said, live your life in such a way that you can tell everyone else to go to hell.
Can't wait to get to that point.
He wasn't joking. Even he was a serious Orthodox man. This is how you live your life. Well, dying to be me is another way of saying that. So once you find yourself, this genuineness takes over and this confidence takes over. Nothing bothers you as much anymore, and you sleep better, and the food tastes better, and the music's better. Everything's better when you become yourself. And so
I love that.
that's the goal ultimately. And happiness, peace, high vibrational frequency. And it's always available as soon as you get rid of the egoic mind, because it's the thing, like you said, on the shoulder. You can't heal. You don't deserve love. You don't deserve this wealth. You don't deserve this person. That's that. I think somewhere in the Bible, maybe it's in the Kabbalah, like you're talking about. Maybe it's that where it says the devil is a liar. It says that somewhere. I'm not sure where it is. The devil's a liar. That's the ego. You do deserve love. You do deserve to be healthy. I'll ask people sometimes, do you think you deserve to be pain-free? And they'll start to cry. They'll say no.
Yes.
And I'll say, why? And they'll say, I screwed up a lot in my life. And I say, who hasn't? I made all kinds of mistakes, But like Dolores Cannon would say, that was the past life. It's a lesson. It's not a life sentence. It's a lesson. You got to get.
I love that. Beautiful. Steve, what are your 3 top tips to living a stellar life?
Oh, wow. How do I put it into only 3? Okay. A lot of people will say, well, if I'm healthy, I'll be happy. But you see, it's the reverse. If you're happy, you'll be healthy. They've got the cart pushing the horse here. You get happy first, then you get healthy. Okay. And so I tell people I work with, find what makes you happy, And this is not just me. I just saw Esther Hicks, the law of attraction people.
Yes.
That YouTube video, sometimes I send it to people that I work with when I can see they have a specific problem. She'll say, have we confused you? Have I confused you? If I did, I'm sorry, she said. But, frequencies and matching vortexes and pulling this to me, it's confusing people. She said, what I'm trying to say is get happy. That is, and by the way, this kid who had stage 4 cancer was supposed to die, who's fine now. That's the favorite part of his book in the back. He writes this line, I am unapologetically happy, or I'm unapologetically having fun.
Yeah, I love it.
The people who are sick, they lost all the joy in their life. They've lost all the fun in their life, And this life, like Anita keeps saying, this is a gift given to us. Enjoy it. Enjoy it. Stop trying to think I'm a victim and I'm bad and all this, start to have more fun and joy in your life. It picks everybody up. We serve as good examples. Carl Jung said the greatest damage that a parent can do to their child is the life that they did not live.
Ooh. Yes, that hits deep.
Yeah, it does hit deep. I saw it with my own parents. They had great potential. Very, very bright people, but I can't do that. I'm not able to do that. Wow. It kind of plants that in the kids. So when they go out and they do something and they free themselves, it tells the child, you're free. You're free too.
Yes.
Jung was the best. He blew me away when I read his work. He was just a genius and all the way around. They were all geniuses, but he was.
Right. And from an epigenetic perspective, when you heal right now, you're healing 7 generations back and 7 generations in the future. So everything you do right now is affecting not only you, and not only everyone around you, but also the people that came before you and the people that will come after you.
It's interesting you would say that. I don't know where you got the seven. I worked with empaths. They said nine, but
I don't remember where I got it.
they
I
told
got
me
it somewhere.
nine, but it's the same principle you're talking about exactly. But
It's like somebody said there is seven chakras, somebody said there is nine chakras. However many generations you are healing, a lot of generations.
I guess thousands of years ago they called it nine chakras, and I guess it's a new thing with seven. But to answer your question about the three things for healing, I could answer probably the most truthful way that I could answer that, based on the success that I've seen here, is to don't make up lists about one, two, and three and things like that anymore. You know, try not to compartmentalize and conceptualize things like that. That's the egoic mind trying to follow a pattern of how to be happy. Get rid of the all of those constraints. Get rid of the books. Get rid of these things people telling you can't. It has to be done this way. It has to be done that way. Free yourself from the idea that it has to be conceptualized like that. That's probably the best way I could answer that, I suppose, in some way. But people do like guidance, right? They do want steps. People say, I understand what you're saying,
Mm.
but please give me some steps anyway. You know, and I'm telling them to get rid of this.
Yeah, yeah. Like our brains always want some kind of a structure to hold on to, and we actually can get freedom through structure, which is a concept I did not understand when I was younger. I thought structure was like a jail. But now I understand that sometimes we need a frame of work and sometimes we need structure just to please our critical mind so our magical mind can flourish.
Well, that Ramana Maharshi would answer that and say, at first you do to get you on the path, but once you start awaken, you do not want. You don't want. There's no structure there. You know, at that point, there's no. What do you say? There's a true yoni has zero samskara, no tendencies, no patterns, none of that stuff. Somebody who's awake. So at first, he used the example of the stick and the fire. I don't know if I told you about that one. That one of his disciples said, "Don't I need to use my mind to understand that I don't need to use my mind?" He said, "Yes, at first. At first, the mind is engaged. It's like trying to start a fire with a stick. You're trying to get the fire going, the smoldering embers, and so you're trying to get that going. The fire is a metaphor for your consciousness, and the stick is a metaphor for your mind. So you do need to use that at first, whether it's a structure or whatever. But once the fire ignites, you don't need. The mind is burned up. It's burned up. There's no more structure at some level. But you're right. Some people, they absolutely do need structure. And I guess I'm kind of providing that for some people, even though I'm telling them to get rid of the structure, they actually do. And the books are part of
Right.
the structure. So yeah, you're right. That's another good distinction, by the way. You're filling in all those gaps in between this and that, which
I
is
love
good.
that.
This is good. You know, this is good. You know,
Mhm.
that's even 4 or 5 things you've mentioned people haven't talked about before. So it's just good. You see life a different
Well,
way, which is beautiful.
oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Steve. Where can people find you and get your beautiful book
I'm
and
right here.
maybe they coach? Well, of course, but coach with you, get helped by you.
Yeah, well, luckily in today's world, they can find me, steveozanich.com. You just Google the name, it comes up everywhere, Amazon. But yes,
Can you spell your last name?
I can. Would you like me to try?
Yes, yes, yes.
Ozanich. Ozanich.
Cool.
Croatian name. Croatian name. But yeah, you know what? We know what it means. I just found out a few years ago what it means. It means writer.
Oh, and you are.
How cool is it? How cool is it? My brother is too. He's a musician, writer. My grandfather wrote. My son writes. Yeah, it's pretty bizarre.
Yeah, I saw a lot. It's really funny because a lot of people subconsciously will go and do things that has to do something with their last name. Like a person who is a last name is singer will become a singer, or carpenter will be carpenter, stuff like that. I saw something about it.
That would be an interesting study.
Yes.
An interesting study. Um,
Well, it makes sense because it's a part of your identity. Yeah, if you say Mr. Singer, then maybe singer will become a part of your identity, might or might not. And for you, even though you didn't know the meaning, your soul knew it.
Yeah, I suppose. Now that would be a difficult study to do. Ask the soul. But I suppose anything's possible. Anything's possible.
Yeah, so where can people find you, Mr. Ozanich?
SteveOzanich.com, or you can find the book on Amazon if they want to. That book took 10 years to write. I methodically built this foundation up bigger, and it's working. I'm getting emails from people all around the world that it helped them to heal from something. This is much bigger than pain, by the way. And it's basically,
Yes.
about finding the greater happiness in your life and stilling your mind and finding greater joy.
Amen. 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 Thank you. That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Steve. This was a pleasure. I'm so happy I got to know you, and I'm so grateful for you.
I feel the same. And thanks for the opportunity, by the way, to talk. It's a message a lot of people don't want to hear, but it still works virtually every single time. And so I'm just out there. Anybody who's willing to listen. Like if a squirrel by the side of the road, if a squirrel asks me about TMS, I'll stop and talk to him about TMS.
That's amazing. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, listeners. Remember to get happy and have fun. And there is no way to be happy. Just find your way to get to happiness. Seek joy every day and free yourself and have a stellar life. This is Orion. Till next time.